I got into music at a pretty young age. My parents kind of threw me into piano piano lessons since I was 4. Uh, which, when you're force fed something that young, you're kind of like, I don't know if I like this so much, and a little resilient to it. But yeah, I stuck with it up until high school. I was doing a lot of like piano competitions, so I used to be uh, pretty solid. Once upon a time, I used to shred basically on the piano, but um, not so much these days. Just because like I don't really keep up so much with like the whole technique and upkeeping my piano skills per se. But um, after a couple of years of doing piano lessons, and being forced at it, I was like, Mom, Dad, I really like drums. How can you throw me in some drum lessons, and one for you, one for me. So they put me in drum lessons, and I loved that. And uh, basically, I fell in love with just doing music as a kid, especially with drums and whatnot. I tried to do a bunch of bands in like grade school playing drums, and then in high school I was in a couple metal emo bands, and yeah, I was trying to make the whole rock band thing work, but it's a little tough when you have other people to rely on. And yeah, so that's kind of like from the start. I was always trying to do stuff musically as a kid, and then um, yeah, I tried to like give up on the whole like music thing. I was like, all right, I'll go do the academia world. I'll try to be a doctor, or do something like that. And absolutely, I would love to score a film. I think that would be incredible. Yeah, well, definitely a lot of it um, is cultivated from your interest in a lot of other artists and whatnot that you listen to growing up, and who you take inspiration from. And definitely initially, a lot of trying to find my identity started with the mimicry of people I looked up to. As with, I think a lot of people kind of do that with any sort of endeavor, not just music. But once you kind of do that, mimic the people you sort of like and look up to, you start to understand things a little more, and you're like, oh, okay, I know how to do this now. I know how to do that because I've like followed in footsteps of people that know what they're doing. I think just naturally, people will, hopefully, naturally start to just veer off in their own path because they get sick of like feeling like they're doing something else that isn't them. So I think just instinctually, once you know how to fully express yourself with things like music and the software and all the instruments, you just instinctually start to veer in your own lane of your identity. So
I'm not saying that thinking is bad. Like everything else,
almost like an overwhelming excitement of like a visual and like loud music and feeling of high energy music, while at the same time through this journey of an hour-long performance or an hour and a half, however long it is, for that to go through peaks and valleys of times where you feel like you want to cry, of either happiness or sadness or nostalgia, whatever it is, to each their own and what they're feeling in that moment. But I would like to at least get people to feel some sort of deep emotion where they're crying, or they're or just feeling very happy and excited. There's definitely a very large amount of artists from the time I was a kid who have inspiration on me to this day, because when you're a kid, your brain's a sponge. You kind of absorb things at different times, and it definitely just shapes who you are later on. So for the early days, it sounds crazy, but I used to listen to the Titanic soundtrack like all the time. So I was really into like cinematic and like classical orchestral music back in the day. And then I got really into like alternative, like Red Hot Chili Peppers, punk, like Green Day, Blink-182. Then I started getting to more like emo, screamo metal bands, like Devil Wears Prada, Under Oath. And then like the first sort of electronic stuff I heard was Tiesto's Elements of Life. That was in grade school. And I started to really like that, but kind of before like the mainstream era of electronic music, or the initial mainstream era. Kind of like when Skrillex was really popping off. But right now, I have a few electronic producers that are just like very at the forefront of who I find inspiration, or who I take inspiration from. Probably in no order: Porter Robinson, Flume, Grizz, my friend LS Dream, and there's so many other artists, but those guys are definitely head honchos in their own way. So definitely represents a time where that speech was very for me. I was going through times of being very anxious and overthinking a lot of things. Once you kind of get to this level of awareness in life, you start to, there's like a blessing and a curse with becoming aware of a lot of things. You start to, question a lot of things and overthink a lot of things. But then eventually the next graduation point after that is becoming so aware of your awareness that you start to kind of dial back on the excessive thoughts and overthinking. So, but at the time I found that speech just Googling how to stop overthinking because I was struggling. So I found it and downloaded it off of YouTube and started playing piano over it because I thought it sounded really nice. And but yeah, regardless, that it definitely represents, regardless of the process, it represents me kind of going through that and needing that speech. As far as my career, it definitely represents a big turning point. I didn't think that song was gonna. Had no idea or thought it was gonna turn into what it did. I thought the song I released prior, called Visionaries, was gonna be like a really good one, which it did turn out to be a good one. But I was like way more excited for that one than Overthinker, just because I didn't think people would really get the speech, and I felt like kind of like not like a song or like a hype thing, but it's turned out to be a cool meditative thing that definitely helped launch my name and the rest of my music, and it helped spread the good word of Alan Watts, because more people need to hear that message.
They have lost touch with reality. That's to say, we confuse science.
This isn't necessarily like the best or like most fun or favorite performance at a festival, but it was very significant. It was the one at Ubby Dubby last year, because it was the first electronic music festival back since COVID, and it also happened to be the largest crowd I had ever played for. So to go from a time of not seeing anybody, being locked in for a little bit and questioning if this music thing is done, to one day going back to your first show back and it's in front of the largest crowd you've ever played for, it was definitely a very shocking moment, and I'll never forget it. Definitely felt like a big significant turning point just for my live shows too, because the next few festivals were all really big crowds and people really started to get good feedback from my sets and whatnot. So probably that one, Ubby Dubby. We got a little trophy for it too. All the artists, it's like first festival back, little trophy. So
is oddly more fun for us than the original event.
I have a couple singles, collaborations with other artists like Carbon, and a few others I can't really say yet. And then there's a project that's like, we have a whole bunch of songs together right now. His name's LS Dream, and one of our songs is coming out in May, but we have several others that will be coming out throughout the year. And then I have this other EP project. It's called Earth Magic, and that will be coming out this year as well. And that's a very like pretty cinematic side of my work that I'm like very, very keen on getting out and letting people see that sort of side and that experience of music from me, because a lot of my stuff has been all over the place, like funky, heavy, some pretty stuff, but this project's going to be very geared towards like the pretty cinematic side. So
The point cannot be explained in words.